Hi, everybody. So I pre-recorded my summaries of today's closing arguments, and it's still finishing up. So it's not going to be ready for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm just going to start with your comments. It's a 26-minute video. So I summarized from 3 news sources, the prosecution's closing arguments and the defense closing arguments, and just some regular stuff about Judge Gall giving the jury their instructions. Hopefully I remembered to mute my microphone when I play it, because last time I did that, it had echo. Uh-oh, but now I don't have any comments to highlight other than saying hi to everybody. Hi, everybody. There we go. Oops. Hi, Elja. Hope that's not a movie you're watching. Hi, Sienna. I clicked the wrong thing. Hi, Malibu, but hi, Sienna. Hi, Malibu. Can't wait for jury verdict. Yeah, so they only deliberated for like 2 hours today, and it's going to be interesting to find out when they come back. If they come back soon, by tomorrow, would you think that means that they all 12 agreed to the same thing? If it goes day after day, that means that they're having difficulties getting 12 people to agree. As I've said many times, pick any random 12 people who follow this case, and good luck finding 12 people to say he's guilty or 12 people to say he's not guilty. Hi, crime scene to courtroom. Thanks for staying up late. Hi, Laura. Thank you. Sienna is saying some people are saying the verdict may be tomorrow, but how would we even know what this jury is thinking? And can they come up with a decision after just a few hours? Hi, Cinder. I think you said that yesterday. Is he still shouting me out? Thank you. MOB, I think, is Monsters Under the Bed, a YouTube channel. Hi, Jamie. Thank you for liking my backgrounds. Yeah, I try to mix it up. And this is an Airbnb I stayed at. So as soon as my summary is finished, I'll start playing that. Yeah, it's a rugby shirt, not prison stripes. Hi, Roman. Yeah, whatever the verdict is, there's going to be chaos and a lot of emotions. Good evening, Miss Dog Lover. I hope your hair still looks nice. Hi, True Crime Swine. It's awfully cold in Indiana tonight. I feel awful for the people waiting outside the courthouse tonight. Yeah, those people are doing a great service, I guess, for the people who have to like get in there and are trying to convey to as many people as possible what is actually being said. Hi, Xtina. Xtina apparently thinks Rick is guilty. I hope Rick Allen enjoys his last night in jail, because starting tomorrow is prison forever. Well, I wouldn't be so quick to say that. I don't know that 12 people are going to decide on that. We'll see. Hi, Steph. More quickly is usually guilty. We'll see. Hi, Dan. Ricky is guilty as heck. I think Dan said he went to school with Rick and thinks that's Rick's voice, and also apparently thinks Rick is guilty. And no, I did not wear this as like a prison homage or something. Fire and Fury, from what you saw, what was your impression of the jury? Just that they were all paying attention. Nobody was not paying attention. A decent amount of note taking. At least one guy was very prolific taking notes. At first, it was mentioned that there were 4 men on the jury. It ended up being 5 men, 7 women. One of the alternates left at some point, so there's only 3 alternates, but at least they got through the trial without having any issues with more than 3 people or 4 people having to leave. Hi, Mr. Oglever. Thank you again. You've been way too generous. Save your money for your hair. Let's not forget the jury have seen prosecution evidence that we have not. And yes, my hair is fire. All right. Thank you for your hair update. Hi, Gen X Randa. What exactly were the signatures that Doug Carter alluded to? Did we ever figure that out? No, we have not. Hopefully, he's going to give some interviews. I believe he's retiring in about 2 months. We'll see. Hi, Dee Dee's. Question about the 60 confessions. If he told his wife 3 times in one conversation, is that 3 confessions or one? Good question. Maybe they did consider it as each time was a confession. Each time he said, I did it, was a separate admission. Sienna makes a good point, but the jury also does not know what we know, all the craziness online, all the various rumors, various things that Judge Gull did not allow to be presented to the jury. High misbehave, kiss John crime scene. I think that's crime scene to courtroom. She's blowing him a kiss or something. Caricature contest. Tomorrow is Friday. I hope this is not dragged out all weekend. I think they do deliberate on Saturday. Hi, Atig. The background seems appropriate for Indiana. Yeah, that's a cornfield. I always get it wrong. Hi, Ivy. Yeah, I'm going to do summaries, a 26-minute summary video that's rendering right now. It should be ready fairly soon. Hi, Francis. I'm okay. I've been working on this all day today, so just waiting for this video to be finished. It's just PowerPoint slides. John says, I think that each of the jurors had their mind made up before they went into deliberation. It's going to be interesting to find out if they come back and say, we can't come up with a solution where all 12 of us agree on the same thing. After that, how long will they deliberate for even more? And will they come back and say, nope, somebody is being stubborn? Which I don't want to make it seem like they should change their mind just to get it over with, but time will tell. Malibu, if I confess 60 times, I'd hope everyone would take me seriously. Well, it seems like an issue is his mom and wife not taking him seriously, something that caused him mental anguish. I was looking at my notes before, my 239 pages of notes. And on April 2nd was when Rick called his mom and said, I found religion on March 21st. I think it was the next day. So she said, yes, I'm going to church. And Rick was crying, so happy that his mom was going to church. That was April 2nd. April 3rd is when he made these phone calls to his wife and mom saying, I did it. And I was looking back at some older legal filings, and the defense said, I mean, in today's final argument, you'll see, Brad Rosie was like, oh, it's so horrible in solitary confinement. But for the first 5 months that Rick was there, he was fine, according to the prosecution. In their April 5th, 2023 emergency safekeeping order, they said they met with Rick on March 24th, 2023. He was fine. Not until, I guess, April 4th, when they saw him again, did he take a total turn for the worse. So April 2nd, on this phone call to his mom that I heard, he sounded fine. He was crying. It seemed like tears of joy that she had also found religion. My video's ready, so I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to start talking for 26 minutes on a video. So here we go. A 26-minute summary of the prosecution and defense closing arguments. Please stand by. I'm going to have to mute myself or else it's going to be an echo. Hi, everybody. I start my live chats with this photo of Abby and Libby as a reminder that this case is about them, and the jury now has the evidence and the testimony, and they should be making their decision fairly soon. So here's a summary from today, November 7th, Thursday. Thank you to Wish TV, WTHR, and Fox 59, which are local TV stations, for providing 3 reports that I tried to summarize for these PowerPoint summaries. First up was jury instructions. Judge Gull told the jury they are the judges of law and facts. Quote, "You must consider the facts," end quote, Gull said. The jury will decide on counts 1 and 2, felony murder for the killing of Abby and Libby while attempting to commit kidnapping. Counts 3 and 4, murder for knowingly killing Abby and Libby. The state must prove each element of each crime beyond a reasonable doubt. Quote, "intentionally or knowingly," end quote, means the suspect had the conscious objective to commit the crime. Gull also defined facts, inferences, and direct evidence. The fact that Richard Allen chose not to testify cannot be considered in their decision. If they have reasonable doubt, they are instructed to find Richard Allen not guilty. If they believe he committed the murders, they are instructed to find him guilty. The 12-member jury, 3 alternates excluded, must reach a unanimous verdict. If they are unable to do so, the trial could end in a mistrial. A reporter noted, Rick entered the courtroom with a regular, large-sized Bible and not the typical Gideon-style Bible he's had in the past. He showed defense attorney Jennifer Auger a verse in his Bible. Both sides will only be able to talk about the evidence and testimony that was admitted during the trial, which means the defense will not be allowed to bring up Odinism or any of the third-party suspects they claim committed the murders. First up was Carroll County prosecutor Nick McClelland delivering the state's closing arguments. He said, February 13th, 2017 is a, quote, "day this community will never forget. A day Abigail Williams and Liberty German went to the trails for a walk and never came back," end quote. The last thing Libby said to her family was, quote, "Grandma, it'll be okay," end quote. McClelland started to show a PowerPoint presentation. No, I had nothing to do with it. Slide number 1, a picture of Abby and Libby on their car ride to the trails the day they disappeared. It said the girls arrived around 1:48 p.m. When Libby's father arrived to pick them up around 3 p.m., they did not show up at the prearranged meeting spot. More alarmingly, no one could contact them. He went looking for the girls but did not find them. He called Libby's grandmother Becky at 3:30 p.m., leading to additional family searches. The search grew throughout the day and lasted until 2 a.m. when it became too dark and dangerous. McClelland described the search that day saying, quote, "No one's looking for 2 dead bodies, they're looking for 2 girls," end quote. Also, no one thought anything bad had happened to Abby and Libby. That doesn't happen around here, end quote. Searcher Pat Brown found the bodies on February 14th and said they, quote, "looked like mannequins," end quote. Photos of the girls' dead bodies and Libby's phone covered in, quote, "leaves and water and dirt," end quote, were shown to the jury. McClelland talked about firearms and how officers in Carroll County carry 9mm handguns and not .40 caliber. He talked about the cartridge recovered from the crime scene. Then he showed the Bridge Guy video, which he called the last moments of the girls' lives, captured on Libby's phone at 2:13 p.m. It, quote, "shows the moment Abby and Libby were kidnapped. You can hear the fear in Libby's voice," end quote, and see the, quote, "fear on Abby's face," end quote. He says Libby said in the video, quote, "that be a gun," end quote, and then Bridge Guy forced the girls down the hill. Police interviewed people on the bridge that day. He showed a photo a witness took of Freedom Bridge. Bree Wilbur saw a man on the trails, quote, "walking with a purpose," end quote. He showed Betsy Blair's Fitbit information. Sarah Carbaugh saw a man muddy and bloody on 300 North. Descriptions from the witnesses varied somewhat, but all were adamant they'd encountered Bridge Guy, and testimony put Rick's car in the CPS parking lot. Phone data showed the girls moving on the bridge at 2:13 p.m. as the Bridge Guy video was taken, but movement of the phone stopped in her health app at 2:32 p.m. Next up was a map showing where various witnesses were in relation to Abby and Libby on the trail and where they saw Bridge Guy. Bree Wilbur arrived at Freedom Bridge at 12:25 p.m. and walked to the High Bridge. She took a photo at 1:26 p.m. at the bench, number 2, and ran into Bridge Guy while walking back to Freedom Bridge. Betsy Blair passed Hoosier Harbor Store, parked, and saw a man on the bridge, and then she passed Abby and Libby as they arrived on the bridge. The Bridge Guy video was taken at 2:13 p.m. Libby's phone stopped moving at 2:32 p.m. Sarah Carbaugh passed the Hoosier Harbor Store camera at 3:56 p.m. and said she saw Bridge Guy and he was muddy and bloody. They know Bridge Guy is the guy in the video who kidnapped and killed Abby and Libby. Quote, "So if we can determine who Bridge Guy is, we can determine who killed Abby and Libby and who is guilty of felony murder," end quote. The volunteer file clerk, Kathy Shank, saw the tip box from 2017 in 2022. Rick had the only 2016 black Ford Focus registered in Carroll County in 2017. That car can be seen in video at the Hoosier Harbor Store at 1:27 p.m., headed towards CPS parking lot. On October 13th, 2022, investigator Mullen interviewed Rick, along with Tony Liggett, and he confirmed he was wearing the same clothes as Bridge Guy. Rick said he saw 3 girls, but changed the time he was there and became angrier as the interview went on. The search warrant for Rick's house on October 13th, 2022, found the car that matched the Hoosier Harbor Store video and a Carhartt jacket. He showed photos of Rick's Ford Focus in the garage. They found the blue Carhartt jacket in Rick's home. Quote, surprise, surprise, the same jacket as Bridge Guy was wearing, end quote. The search of Rick's home turned up a .40 caliber round kept in a Hope or keepsake box and a Sig Sauer P226 handgun. It was the same brand and caliber of bullet in his home as was found at the crime scene. McClelland described it as the, quote, Bridge Guy starter kit, end quote. Investigators recovered numerous electronic devices from Rick's home, but they did not find the phone he had in 2017. McClelland said Rick searched, quote, should I die now, end quote, after looking at Delphi News in April 2022. Just a note here from me, I encountered 3 different references as to when Rick made those Google searches. One said April 2022, another news site said 2 months after the murders, which would be April 2017, and finally Lauren from Hidden True Crime had in her notes, quote, from April 17th of that year. So I'm still unclear if it was April 2017 or April 2022. What somebody searched using Rick's email address on Google, Delphi, Indiana News. Should I die now? Die now, question mark. Should I die now? Should I die now? Indiana State Police testing on Rick's gun matched the cartridge found at the scene. That was verified 3 times by the boss of the lab technician, who is the president of a national organization on firearms. Quote, see how the pieces are starting to fall into place, end quote, McClelland said. Rick had no explanation for why his bullet was at the crime scene. Rick used his gun to get power over the girls. In Rick's second interview, October 26, 2022, with his wife, when they were alone, McClelland said, quote, you saw how he tried to manipulate her, end quote. Rick got angrier and was arrested and sent to Westville. Quote, that could have been all we had to present to you, but it's not, end quote, because Rick started to confess. In the news article, it said that McClelland today said April 12, 2023, Rick told his mother he found Jesus on March 21st, 2023. I just looked back at my notes, and according to my notes, Rick said that in a phone call on April 2nd, 2023. The following day, April 3rd, he made these phone calls to his family saying he did it. Next up, McClelland played a phone call of Rick confessing to his wife. Quote, I did it. Rick said, I killed Abby and Libby. She replied, no, you didn't. Yes, I did, Rick said. Why would you say that? His wife answered. Because maybe I did, Rick said. I think I did. Rick repeated, I think I did. His wife said, why would you say that? Rick replied, because I think I did. Her final answer was, no, you didn't, she said while crying. They're screwing with you to get you to say things, end quote. McClelland said Rick made the confessions, quote, unprovoked, unpressured, of his own free will, end quote. Next, McClelland showed the confession letter Rick wrote to the Westville warden saying he was ready to confess. Local reporter News 8's Kyla Russell reported that Rick was shaking his head during the following. McClelland said, Rick's confessions to Westville psychologist Dr. Walla, where he said his intentions were sexual in nature. Rick told Walla he made sure the girls were dead because he did not want them to suffer. He did not think he sexually assaulted the girls, but didn't remember. Rick was not behaving strangely or suffering from psychosis when he made that confession on May 3rd, 2023. Rick said he was scared by a van. Rick also told Walla he kept living his life because he had not been caught. Walla said Rick's behavior changed after his attorneys visited and that the shift in his behavior was intentional and that he was not psychotic. There were multiple reports from guards that Rick had confessed. Rick said he stole a box cutter to commit the killings and discarded it at the CVS where he worked. McClelland then played a confession call to Rick's mom. So did Kathy tell you I did it? Rick asked. His mom replied, we're not going to discuss this, okay? You know we love you, don't you? Rick asked, regardless? She said, I just know you don't have it in you to do something like that. Rick replied, Mom, I wouldn't sit here and tell you I did it if I didn't. She said, saying you did it doesn't mean you did. It does when I did it, Rick said. He also said, I'm worried that you guys are not going to love me because I said I did it. McClelland said Rick's call was unprovoked and of his own free will. It shows Rick is not suffering from psychosis and that he trusts Dr. Walla and talked to her every day. Rick continued to confess after he was moved to Wabash Prison. Brian Harshman listened to more than 700 phone calls and reviewed Rick's confessions. Harshman followed up on Rick's statement about a van and found out Brad Weber was driving his van home that day. Quote, something only the killer would know, end quote. There was no doubt in Harshman's mind that the voice in the Bridge Guy video was Rick. McClelland said, quote, now all the pieces are clear. All the pieces are together. Richard Allen is the Bridge Guy. He kidnapped them and later murdered them. He slit their throats. He stole the youth and life away from Abby and Libby, end quote. McClelland again summarized the events of February 13, 2017, and showed the Snapchat photo from Kelsey's car. Something in Libby caused her to begin recording on her phone. He told the jury there was a pause in the health data on Libby's phone before Rick killed the girls. He estimated Rick had about 7 minutes with the girls before Brad Weber drove down the access road and spooked him. As Libby clung to life and grabbed her throat, she began to cry. He said that then Rick killed Abby. Quote, Allen used his gun and power to take those girls down the hill. If that's not enough to convince you, we have his confessions, end quote. He said the bullet left at the scene and Libby's phone led investigators to Rick's doorstep. Rick lived in the community for 5 years but did not realize he left behind a cartridge from his gun at the crime scene. Rick then confessed over and over about what he did and how he did it, with details only the killer would know. McClelland reviewed 3 points: Bridge Guy, the bullet, Rick's confessions. Quote, I believe the evidence is firmly convincing that Richard Allen is Bridge Guy, and he killed Abby and Libby, end quote. McClelland said and asked the jury to consider all the evidence and implored them to find him guilty. After 58 minutes, McClelland finished at 10:23 a.m. Next up, Brad Rosie delivered the defense's closing arguments. He said the trial has taken 17 days. Quote, the defense trusts what you've heard over the past several weeks is more important than what you're hearing today, Rosie said. Rosie outlined 4 main issues with the state's case. Number 1, broken timeline. 2, bumbled ballistics. 3, false confessions. 4, digital forensics data. The state presented a theme of, quote, what they don't want you to hear is what we had to tell you, end quote. He says, quote, we had to do their job, end quote. Rosie expanded on that by saying the prosecution and police never did a height analysis to match Rick with Bridge Guy, lost hours of interview video, and did not search to see what Ford Focuses were in the county at the time until the middle of the trial. One of the news websites said, Rosie said, Brad Heath said he saw an unusual man that day, but I think his testimony was that he only saw an unusual car, not an unusual man. Betsy Blair described Bridge Guy as, quote, youthful, boyish, and not short, end quote. Rosie said, quote, I have to take a breath before I talk about her, end quote, when referring to Sarah Carbois. Carbois conflated muddy with bloody. He said the jury may discount a witness, calling it, quote, credible dubiosity, end quote. I don't even know that dubiosity is a word, but I guess technically it fulfills my quota of saying doobie every live chat. The jury can discredit Carbois, who initially told police she saw Bridge Guy in a tan jacket and covered in mud, but changed her testimony to say he had a darker jacket and was covered in blood. Quote, she too did not tell the whole story until cross-examination, end quote. The prosecution did not tell the jury about David McCain, Shelby Hicks, or Cheyenne Mill because it, quote, doesn't fit their narrative, end quote. The prosecution did not include Rick's timeline regarding how he got to the bridge. A news reporter said Rick nodded his head in agreement at this point. The state tried to put Rick on a route on February 13, 2017 that was the best fit for them. The jury should look at the interrogation videos and how Rick handled himself in them. The Indiana State Police Lab could not exclude Brad Weber's gun as being the one that cycled around found by the girls' bodies. Rosie showed photos of Weber's garage with sticks and Weber's statement to police that he did not go straight home the day of the murders. The state did not offer up information on the FBI leaving the investigation. The sticks laid on the girls' bodies were not collected by police. Rick made 3 confession calls on April 3, 2023, but the state only played 2 of them. Quote, why not offer up context to you? Why not tell the whole story? End quote. Rick was in a Westville Correctional Facility cell for 13 months. All the state wanted to talk about was what Rick said, not how he was. Quote, "You must ask yourself why they wouldn't want you to see the truth." End quote. Rick was only arrested because of the quote-unquote magic bullet, and that the state tried to use it as leverage against Rick. The state asked the jury to just believe the witness, who testified the cartridge at the scene matched Rick's gun. The state did not tell the jury that someone plugged a headphone into Libby's phone between 5:45 p.m. and 10:32 p.m. the day the girls died. Quote, "You should question the credibility of this investigation. It shows desperation on the part of the state." End quote. The Brad Weber van detail was only recently added this year without showing the same interview. It took 7 years for the hair and DNA testing to occur. Rick's Google searches have no proof that Rick actually made the searches. The searches are only registered to his email. The Google search information was forensic examiner Chris Cecil offering the jury quote-unquote fast food. The man who did the autopsies, Dr. Roland Kaur, said in a deposition there may have been more than one murder weapon, but now says it could be a box cutter. Rosie said Kaur met with the prosecution 3 times after the defense deposed him. Rosie played the bridge guy video and said the jury would not be unreasonable if they decided, quote, "I don't know if Carbois saw anything," end quote. The state has only a few key moments in their timeline. February 13th at 2:13 p.m. is the bridge guy video. At 3:56, Sarah Carbois sees a man walking on 300 North. Rosie calls Carbois' testimony worthless. The witness testimony is not consistent with 5'5" Richard Allen. Rosie talked about the overlapping witnesses who saw and heard nothing when the killings allegedly happened. The state has ignored and does not want to talk about the possibility of multiple actors involved in the killings. A law enforcement officer said at one point, police did suspect multiple people. Rosie said Abby would have lived for 5 to 10 minutes and could have screamed, but nobody heard any screaming. The state ignored there could have been more than one killer or that someone could have accessed the bridge from the south side. The state believes Rick killed one girl while controlling and then killing the other, redressed the girls, and covered their bodies. The state suggests the crime was, quote, labor intensive, end quote, and committed by a 5'5" man without a trace in a short period of time. Rosie said, quote, "It is just implausible," end quote. During jury selection, jurors were told to exercise common sense. Rosie said, quote, "Now is the time to exercise your common sense," end quote. Rick called law enforcement to say he was at the bridge. The officer who interviewed him soon after found nothing unusual. Even when police lied to Rick in 2022, he maintained his innocence. The state wants jurors to believe a change of tone is evidence of guilt. Rosie called that nonsense. If the state is bearing down on you and falsely accusing you of murder, you would respond the same way Rick did. Rick lived in Delphi for 5 years after the murders and did not flee because he didn't do it. The magic bullet evidence was bad. When police first got Rick's gun, they cycled rounds 4 to 6 times in a row and still did not get marks sufficient to judge if they were similar to the bullet by the girls' bodies. The tech did an apples to oranges comparison by comparing a bullet fired from Rick's gun to the unfired one found at the scene. The photos of the marks should cause the jurors concern. Quote, "Where the hell are the sufficient agreements?" End quote. He asked where the marks were supposed to match up. Quote unquote, "Use your eyes." The matching marks were subclass characteristics and an example of why this is a dangerous business. Quote, "This is a subjective game," end quote. The witness, Melissa Oberg, told the jury, quote, "You should just believe me," end quote. When the jury asked why the defense did not do their own ballistics testing, Rosie said the state's ballistics was so poor, the defense didn't think they needed their own ballistics to overturn it. Rosie then tackled the issue of the false confessions. Rick was kept in unprecedented conditions for a pretrial detainee and described Rick's cell as the most secure unit in Indiana. Rick was treated like the convicted rapists and murderers in the prison. No human, no matter how strong, could be in those conditions for that long without having a breakdown. Rick never saw the recreation units at the prison, only a small outdoor cage. Quote, "Solitary confinement is damaging to a man or woman's brain," end quote. The state violated their 30-day maximum for a mentally ill detainee in solitary confinement. Quote, "When the dust settled, he was there for 13 months. How much can one human endure?" End quote. The state didn't want the jury to see video of Rick in Westville. Rick was not faking it, and even Dr. Walla and Dr. Martin said they weren't sure he was faking it. The Indiana Department of Corrections medical standard was to keep Richard Allen alive. Rosie told the jury, quote, You should be insulted, end quote. The state cherry-picked, saying Rick was psychotic on the 13th, so they played a confession from the 14th instead. The truth was that Rick was psychotic and being stuck with a needle the entire time. The media note said prison psychologist, but I think he's a psychiatrist, Dr. John Martin, changed his mind on the witness stand, agreeing that Rick was psychotic. Quote, who could believe Rick was oriented to time and place, end quote, Martin said. Rosie continuing, false memories start out as false beliefs. Rosie told the jury to listen to what Rick actually said in his confessions. I did it. Maybe I did it. I think I did it. I think I did. I don't know. Rosie said those were all false beliefs. The data on the phone should make the jury question the state's case. He held up a sign with these times: 5:45 p.m., 10:32 p.m., and 4:33 a.m. The first is when Libby's phone said a headphone was plugged in. The second is when the phone says the headphone was removed. The last is when Libby's phone connected to a cell phone tower after hours of being disconnected. Rosie said the phone has no feelings, emotions, or opinions, just raw data that speaks for itself. Quote, the phone is right, end quote. Rosie asked if it was ironic that Brad Weber did not go straight home, had sticks in his driveway, and the state could not rule out his gun. The state wanted the jury to see all of the knives and box cutters at Rick's home, but there was no DNA evidence linking any of them to the murders. Rick's confession was manipulated. Dr. Wallace's version reads like a story, but Rick was psychotic and could not put together a logical story. Dr. Wallace was quote-unquote infatuated with the Delphi murders case. Bridge Guy was walking on the bridge and witnesses saw him waiting and standing on a platform. The state tried to convince the jury, without evidence, that Rick was an alcoholic. The fact that people searching in the area did not find the girls the night of the 13th raises the question of whether the bodies were actually there when the scene was searched. Rosie also mocked the state's reliance on Rick owning a blue Carhartt jacket. Quote, there's a revelation for you, a blue Carhartt jacket in a closet in Delphi, Indiana, end quote. Rick was alone in an 8x10 cell for months. Quote, do you blame him for picking up a Bible, end quote. Rosie called the state's witness, Brian Harshman, a mind reader for knowing the Bridge Guy voice was Rick's. Dozens of people called the tip line to say they recognized the voice. Quote, no one identified Richard Allen as the man on that bridge, end quote. There are 5 components for the jury to keep in mind. Nobody identified Rick as Bridge Guy. No digital data connects Rick to the crime. No clothing connects Rick. No DNA connects Rick. No trace material connects Rick. Quote, at the end of the day, the state's timeline is crumbled. The magic bullet is nothing more than a tragic bullet, end quote. Rosie acknowledges the girls' families and said this has been a long journey. Rosie repeated that the times are unexplained. Rosie showed the jury a picture of medieval racks and thumbscrews used to torture people. Rosie said, as a society, we have evolved into other forms of interrogation, like putting someone in a cell in solitary and throwing away the key. Quote, someone should have spoken up. Something's wrong here. Something's not right. Where's the moral compass, end quote. Then he told the jury, quote, you're the moral compass, end quote. Rosie showed the jury 4 photos of Rick in prison, covered in feces and being dragged while wearing a spit hood. News aide Kyla Russell said while the photos were shown, Rick looked away and his wife Kathy cried. Then he showed them a picture of a python wrapped around a rodent. Quote, that is the power of the state, end quote, Rosie said. He finished up saying, quote, now is not the time to return to the Middle Ages. Acknowledge this is not the way we function. Rendering a verdict of guilty would be endorsing this behavior. We are asking you to set Rick free and give a verdict of not guilty, end quote. He finished after 1 hour and 17 minutes. Next up is McClelland's rebuttal to the defense's closing argument. He said, it's been a long 3 or 4 weeks, that now is the time to hand the case over to the jurors. Quote, you're in the driver's seat. I'm not up here to tell you how to feel, end quote. He said the defense did not back up their claims. The prosecution has witnesses on the trail that day, and that they simply reaffirm that Richard Allen was there. Witnesses after the murders on the High Bridge do not matter. McClelland pointed at Allen and said he used a gun to scare the girls. Libby had a quote-unquote blood outline of a tear on her face. Melissa Oberg's testing of Rick's gun against the crime scene unspent round was verified, and it links Rick to the crimes. News aide Kyla Russell says Richard Allen is extremely engaged and looking at Baldwin with disbelief. McClelland said, quote, words matter. Why don't Allen's words matter? End quote. There are two victims in this case, Abby and Libby. Quote, they are Alan's victims, but they aren't just victims, they are heroes, end quote. Final quote, Libby said someday she is going to help police solve crimes. That's exactly what she did, end quote. McClelland ended his rebuttal. Final slide, Judge Gull gave the jury instructions. She said the alternate jurors will be in the deliberation room and be engaged but will not participate. The jury's decision must be beyond a reasonable doubt. She says the burden is on the state to prove that. It is, quote, not beyond all possible doubt, end quote. Defendants are not convicted on suspicion. Their decision must be unanimous. If they are left with two interpretations, they must choose one that sides with innocence. They can take into account any bias the witness may have. They should believe the witness until they cannot with a good reason. Nothing Judge Gull said during the trial should be considered evidence. There are no transcripts of the witnesses. There is nothing that was not admitted. At 1:40 p.m., the case has gone to the jury, and the jury is in the process of choosing a foreman. At 4 p.m., the jury stopped for today and will start at 9 a.m. tomorrow. That's the summary for today, and now I'll get to your comments in the chat. Yo. All right, here we go. So that's that. I thought both sides did a good job. I still would vote guilty, though. No. Anyone listen to Dr. Dan tonight? I don't know if you mean Dr. John from Hidden True Crime with Lauren. So insightful. Yeah, I think a lot of people were referencing Dr. John from the Hidden True Crime channel. I only saw a few minutes. He has some experience with dealing with, not some, a lot of experience dealing with inmates. So maybe go watch that live stream from earlier today. Did anyone ever bring up why Rick just didn't watch the fish from the trail and no need to go on the bridge? So the bridge is like 63 feet above the creek. I just want to make sure my microphone's working. I'm not talking for 4 hours. So you can see down to the creek if the water is clear. However, on February 8th and 9th, a few days, like 5 days before the murders, there was snow that melted and made the creek very muddy. So you could not see fish. So on February 16th, 5 days after the murders, Rick tells police, I was there from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. 2 days after that, he said, I was there 1:30 to 3:30. So if it takes like 18 minutes to walk from his car at CPS to the bridge, platform 1, to look at fish, what is he doing for the other hour and 40 minutes? He said he walked back to a bench for a while that was overlooking the creek, which I initially thought it was the Mears parking lot, or sorry, the Mears intersection bench number 6. But in one of my live chats from yesterday or the day before, I took a photo of the bench number 3, and that also kind of overlooks the creek. So what is he doing for like an hour and a half on a bench, but nobody sees him? That's one of the reasons why I would vote guilty. Hi, Nicole. Thank you. I appreciate your generosity. Also, outdoor loser. You're not an outdoor loser or an indoor one either. Thank you. I've not been to Taco Bell for a month, so I'm going to be forced to go tomorrow. Thank you. Under your scars. Thank you. Also, we love Canadians. They're so nice and generous. And also, we love Europeans like Miss Dog Lover. Thank you. Moving along. ATIG. Yes, good point. Since the jury got to ask questions along the way after each witness was finished with the prosecution and defense, maybe they won't have to deliberate as long. We shall see. I don't know what that's about, but anyway, I'm kind of busy right now. Lauren, Laura, hi, Laura. Any young members of the jury? I'm not sure that I'm even allowed to discuss it for jury tampering. Let's just say there's a wide variety of ages. Yeah, Sienna, I felt like the jury had very good questions, although I wish they had asked a few others that were maybe help clarify things even more, but they did not. I'm not sure at this point if they can come back to ask Judge Gull more questions. I think I was researching that in some cases they are allowed to come back and say to the judge, "We have some questions on this," but I'm not sure if that pertains to Indiana, where they're allowed to ask questions after each witness is finished. John says O.J. Simpson's jury acquitted him in 4 hours. Alec Murdaugh's convicted him in 3 hours. Tomorrow will be an interesting day. So I do not currently have a live chat scheduled for tomorrow or Saturday. I'm doing a member chat on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, followed by a public chat at 4 p.m. Eastern. If the jury comes back with a decision, obviously that's going to change. Hi, She Elf. Did the jurors' questions ever make you feel that they had prior information on the case? No. Malibu, what is your take on Judge Gull since you saw her in action? She would start off every day happy or pretending to be happy as soon as the jury came in. Like before they came in, she's like, sometimes she would come in her floral dresses with her guns showing. And then later she would put on her black robe, whatever. And then she'd say, she was very kind to the jury, saying, "Hello, it's so nice to see you. I hope you had a pleasant evening." And then we got started, and she was never that happy again for the rest of the day. I felt like she was very concerned with the jury being able to hear the evidence and make the proper decision. Like the jury was kind of like her number one priority from what I saw. Some people say she's biased against the defense. When she kind of sustained or overruled objections, I felt like she was mostly fair from my like, I don't want to say I'm a normal person because obviously I'm not normal. But the first time, like somebody who has no like legal knowledge like me, based on what she said, I didn't really feel like she was biased against the defense. However, she kind of did have an attitude in her tone when like dealing with Rosie and also Baldwin, but she seemed to be sometimes frustrated mostly by Rosie saying like that's not how you impeach a witness, acting like Rosie did not know how to like follow proper procedure inside the court. So I don't know that was necessarily biased on her behalf of doing that, but maybe she was just like in general, why is this man, Rosie, not following procedure? High Lake, I may be a minority here, but I think he will be found guilty. In this case, I don't think there's any majority or minority. I've seen it like half and half. I was watching Hidden True Crimes lunchtime live chat, and she said, I think Rick is guilty, and saw a lot of comments saying, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Some people say guilty as sin. Can we all just get along and realize that this is a horrible scenario that played out in the woods of Delphi that day, and let's at least be polite to each other. Gull's gavel, hello. It sounds like the closings were all very emotional. I think the jury's minds were overloaded and want to start fresh tomorrow. I think we'll have a verdict late tomorrow. Somebody send me a message when it's coming through. Hi, Priscilla. Nice to see you. Do you think that the defense discredited the confessions by saying Rick was psychotic? Rosie made some good points. However, I never saw anything in the defense's presentation to make me think that what I heard in those 7 phone calls when I was in the courtroom were fake or false confessions. It'll be interesting to see if the jury believed those confessions or not. Steph says, I think, or Stephanie, I'm not sure if I can call you Steph. I think it will be a hung jury, but I hope they can come to a decision. Just the thought of like dragging this out even past 8 years after it happened, hopefully there is some kind of unanimous decision. Tina says, I hope McClellan does interviews after the case. He knows his case better than anyone on the planet. I would imagine he would. Hi, rescue all the dogs. May justice be knocking or knock in on the door. Yes. Hi, Michelle. Thank you for your nice comment. I accidentally stumbled on the site formerly known as Twitter today. How do you accidentally stumble onto X? And was shocked at the number of people who think Rick is innocent. Different strokes for different folks. A lot of different. It's interesting. I mean, our country just voted for president. We're not discussing the results or anything, but I'm shocked how so many recent elections are almost half and half. Millions and millions of people split it almost down the middle, two totally different viewpoints. This case, I don't know if I'd say it's 50-50, but it's close. So that's that. Roman says Sunday is for Dairy Queen, jury included. They should have gone on a field trip to Pizza Hut and Dairy Queen. They were allowed to watch my live chats when I was streaming from. Ah, no, they weren't. I'm kidding. We should delete those. Cinder, hello. I'm very impressed with Slick Nick. Defense is good too. Yes, I thought they both did a good job. However, Rosie did not change my mind about guilt. Xtina, I don't think Monday's a holiday in America, or is it? Is it Veterans Day? Laura Stone, those jurors want to go home, expect verdict tomorrow. I hope they're not like, I want to get out of here. Let's just wrap this up. Because if they come up with like a decision that's way too quick, and if somebody like changes their mind or their vote just to go home, that's not justice for Abby and Libby or Richard Allen, their families, or the town of Delphi. Fire and Fury, hi. Does all it take is one to say not guilty for a hung jury? Correct, from what I know. So then at that point, McClellan would have to decide. Oh, I guess Gull would say, go back that thing up into the jury deliberation room and try and talk it out more until you can see if all 12 of you can come to the same decision. I guess if they keep coming back to Gull saying we cannot come to the same decision, all 12 of us, then I guess Gull will say, well, I think it's called a mistrial. And McClellan will have to decide if he's going to charge Rick Allen. Hi, Mary Elizabeth. She says, I hope it's guilty. I can't imagine 12 get to non-guilty. I would be shocked if 12 people said he was not guilty. So I'm expecting either guilty or a hung jury. Hi, devoted to Mariah. Hopefully Tom has been able to sleep now that it's in the jury's hands. I'm still tired and hungry. Hi, Amy. Yeah, I did have a artificial intelligence to transcribe my PowerPoint text into my normally robotic voice. It was even worse than normal, so I stopped doing that. Hi, Miranda. Hi, Katie. Outdoor Loser says, Rick is guilty, guilty, guilty. May God have mercy on his soul. It's going to be interesting to find out if he truly is found guilty. Will he ever say, I am truly guilty. Here's exactly how it all played out. And I was totally lying in court just so I can maybe be found not guilty. Hi, Jason. Thank you. Sienna, from what I have heard, I think guilty, but I'm open to whatever gets justice for the girls. I don't think this online debate, like at what point will it ever end if depending whatever the verdict is. Like I just said, a lot of people think he's innocent. If he's found guilty, people will freak out. A lot of people think he's guilty, and if he's found not guilty, a lot of people are going to be very sad and freak out. Hi, B. Do you think the right verdict will justify Gull's decision to make it so difficult for the public to have access to this trial? I've said previously that I think, like Judge Gull, from what I saw, it seemed like her main concern is the jury. So the jury's there in the courtroom, the defense attorneys, the prosecution, and the family. To her, I think that's the only people who really matter, not all of us people who want to know exactly what's going on. Having said that, I think it should have been more public, obviously. Hi, Jamie. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't see what your avatar is, but maybe that's a good thing. Somebody from Croatia. Hi, Mario. I understand he put this man across the creek in 5 minutes, and he was so confident throwing stuff into the creek in 5 minutes. Since Libby's phone stopped moving. I'm not sure what that means. Are you saying that they said they crossed the creek in 5 minutes, and then Rick or somebody, bridge guy, put their clothes in the creek in a few minutes after Libby's phone stopped moving at 2:32? I still have to go back and look at all this phone data to see when Libby's phone was moving after they went down the hill, try and line it up with how this all could have played out. As I said, I'm going to try and do like one major overview video of the entire case and the trial. Not sure if it's going to be done in 2 weeks or what. Dee Dee's believes the evidence shows guilty as charged. High blinker fluid. Agree, Tom. Dr. John talked about this earlier today. His dependent personality disorder would make it hard that they refused to listen to him. So he's saying that Rick was dependent on his wife and mom. It seems obvious he loves them a lot, more than a lot. So I guess this Dr. John from Hidden True Crime channel said that if Rick is dependent on his wife and mom and he finally like spills his guts and the truth, and they're both saying, no, I don't believe you, stop talking. How did that affect his mind after he had become religious, trying to maybe atone for his sins? And his wife and mom are saying, stop talking. I don't want to hear you. Hi, Susan. I believe him. I liked his confession to his mom. Stephanie says this could have been a slam dunk and should have been. Yes, if Richard Allen is bridge guy, which I think he was, within the first week, this should have been wrapped up. Hi, D. I wonder if they will find him guilty of the original charge, kidnapping that led to their deaths, and not guilty of the second charge, straight up murder. I was thinking that also. I would not be surprised with that. And also, I just want him to be found. I don't want to say I want him to be found guilty, but I believe he is guilty. So I want him to pay for what he did. And if that means him spending 30 years in prison for kidnapping that led to murder, then that's fine. AT, thank you so much for clarifying that Dairy Queen can't call their product ice cream. I gained 5 pounds in Delphi just by eating Dairy Queen and not eating breakfast or lunch. She elf, nobody cares, Tom. So weird to think he might be guilty, but get acquitted and go home to his wife, and she still think he was innocent. Interesting times ahead, no matter what. Noel says, yeah, so I suggest checking out Hidden True Crime from today. They probably had a very long live chat where Lauren, who's in line with me, she took very good notes. Her husband is, I don't know what is he a psychiatrist or psychologist? If you want to hear somebody like kind of diagnose, although maybe he shouldn't diagnose from just listening to testimony, but maybe check it out. People said it was insightful. Outdoor Loser says the confessions alone are enough to convict, in my opinion. I think it's very impactful to hear this man so many times telling his wife and mom, I did it. I killed Abby and Libby. Like, how's the jury going to explain that away? Obviously, people online have explained it away by saying he's lost his mind being in solitary confinement. However, like people point out, technically, what is solitary confinement at Westville? Rick was he had a tablet where he could listen to music, watch movies. He was talking to Dr. Walla every day. He was talking to suicide companions all day long. At some point, they were outside of his cell constantly. He was under constant observation, which means every minute. And I want to know if he doesn't have a cellmate in Wabash or Cass County. How is that any better than his conditions at Westville? How is that not solitary, what Westville was? It was mentioned that in Cass County, Rick can't even talk to any of his whatever. Hello, Rick can't talk to any of his quote unquote neighbors. Like there's nobody in cells, I guess, on either side of him. Hi, Ivory Rose. In a pretrial hearing, Dr. Wallace said Rick told her in late March that he was feeling weird in his head and something was wrong. Also, being stable doesn't mean you're doing well. I would like to know like the date of that. I don't know if I wrote it down. March 21st, I know for sure was when Rick said he found God. And what did that play into him starting to confess to his family and other people? True crime swine. I'm thinking they will find him guilty, but I thought the same about Casey Anthony. Just get ready for online drama. Victoria says guilty as sin. Rainey says even if Rick is found not guilty, he will never find peace. He shouldn't have recanted. Who knows what the future holds for him? If he's found not guilty, which I don't think he will he sue for millions of dollars for wrongful arrest or wrongful imprisonment? If I'm on a jury, I would not give him millions of dollars because what I've seen, I think he's guilty. Hi, Lil Pauly. He agreed. Dr. John of Hidden True Crime today was very interesting. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Frank. If they had held him in a county jail from the start and poorly protected him and something ended up happening to him, they would be saying they should have held him in the prison. I agree that he was not safe at Carroll County Prison, or sorry, Carroll County Jail, which, from what I've heard, was a hellhole. No heat in the winter. Horrible situation. They're opening a new jail in Carroll County next month. So I truly believe that Tobe Lesenby did that safekeeping order to try and truly protect Richard Allen from other inmates. I disagree that it took a year and 9 months to get him to Cass County. But as I said before, the defense said Rick was okay for the first 5 months at Westville alone in a cell. It wasn't until April 5th, like a day or two after he started confessing, that they officially filed to get him moved. Hi, Turtlebox. Someone in the chat said if he tells his wife, I did it 3 times in one conversation, that is counted as one confession, not 3. Well, I don't think they presented 60 total. There's maybe like 7 or 8 guards. I don't want to add it up. 7, well, maybe I will. 7 or 8 guards. His mom and wife is around 10. Dr. Walla, Dr. Martin is 12. The warden is 13. I don't know where they got 60 from. Hi, Dana. Richard Allen's confessions describing his events to his therapist pointed my decision to guilty. He has some interesting points in there, including he bundled up, Bridge Guy was bundled up. He said he got a six pack and drank 3 beers before he killed these two girls and then drank three after. Also, one of the most interesting things that he said, which I don't recall exactly when this was said. I don't know if it was to Dan Doolin or maybe the October 22 interrogations, but he said the girls he passed, according to him around noon, he thought they were sisters. Like the older one was babysitting the younger ones. And in reality, the four girls who passed Bridge Guy around 1:30, three out of those four girls, I think, were either sisters or half sisters. So that was an interesting thing that Rick picked up on, even though he said he didn't really pay attention to them. Not that that alone means he's guilty. Hi, Scott. I wonder what they ever dug up out of his yard. Well, apparently nothing because they did not present it at the trial, or nothing relevant. Outdoor loser with a great point. If they had video of Rick's car, why didn't they recognize it sooner in such a small town? That's what I've said many times. Liggett and Lesenby worked 1 block from the CVS where Rick parked. I've shown previously Rick parked, at least in this one photo I have, out front on the side of CVS. He went in reverse in his black car with black rims. I know Lesenby said he really wasn't involved in the investigation, which that's like, okay, that doesn't make sense. But if Tony Liggett is watching this video around 1:30, if he knows that the four girls passed Bridge Guy around 1:30 to 1:40, why is Tony Liggett not watching this Hoosier Harvester video camera footage to see if anybody's headed towards CPS? And if it's a black sedan, that's a hatchback with black rims, hubcaps. Shaking my head, I don't understand. Hi, Angie. Thank you. I appreciate it. Noel says to Outdoor Loser, the state struggles to figure anything out. I'm shocked they even looked at the video. A lot of mistakes in this case. Turtlebox. For what it's worth, confessions made to a spouse are inadmissible. Spousal privilege protects him from what would otherwise be a Mirandized confession in that case. Well, he made enough confessions to guards, the warden, doctors, and his mom. Hi, Zero Cool. Was the Carhartt jacket introduced into evidence? If not, why? Technically, the jacket was not in the courtroom as its own exhibit, from my recollection. The photos of Rick's home included I think 2 close-ups of the blue jacket at Rick's house. But I've said I could not really see enough to see if it matched up to Bridge Guy's jacket. It did have a large hood. It was navy blue, like the color of Bridge Guy's, although it had like a weird logo in this area here, which is not the normal Carhartt area. But people who watch the Bridge Guy video says you can't see any kind of logo on Bridge Guy's jacket, which would add up. I don't know. I'm just saying would add up to if Rick had that jacket, the logo being here may not show up. But that's a good point. If it was a definite match with which McClelland seemed to say today, Why not hold it up in front of the jury saying, "Here's the jacket. Here's the bridge guide jacket." Fire and Fury. I would have isolated the voice from the bridge guide video, guys down the hill, and then played the jailhouse phone call back to back. If I was the prosecutor, I would have also done something similar. In the final, like the very end of McClelland's closing arguments or the rebuttal. True crime swine. I genuinely think no one allowing him to confess made his psychosis worse. I'm not sure how that works. Tom Webster said, "Happy Mariah Carey season." Ah, he's so weird. Turtlebox. This whole phone call with his wife is so inadmissible. Laughing something off, especially since his wife is saying he did not, and she believes they've guilted him into saying it. Well, what about all the other stuff? Especially even in February 4th, 2024, at Wabash Prison, a guard was walking by every 15 minutes to see if Rick was okay and heard Rick crying. I have it right here, actually. Here's my notes, 239 pages. Actually, please stand by. I will read the February 4th, if I can find it. I can't find it. So February 4th, from what I remember reading from like an hour ago, this guard, February 4th, 2024, not at Westville, at Wabash. He's walking by his 15-minute rounds, overhears Rick laying in his bed in his cell, crying, saying, wait, let me get it right. Sorry. Awkward. If I can't find it, then we'll have to move on with our lives, but please stand by. I don't know why I can't find it. Sorry, I tried. I can't find it. But he, in February 2024, he said something like, "I'm sorry." I don't want to misquote, but he did say that he was sorry for killing Abby and Libby. So that's February 2024. After he left Westville, 2 months later, he's overheard. I don't know if he's praying to God or what, but again, saying that he's the one who killed Abby and Libby. True crime swine. I don't doubt he was in psychosis. I just don't think that's the reason he confessed. I just never heard from any doctor really convincing me that some kind of mental issue, psychosis or delirium, caused 10 months of saying, "I'm guilty of the crimes I committed," only because, like, he's not telling the truth. It did not add up to me. Cindy J, no one pushed him for details. His wife, I think, said at one point, "Why would you say that?" And he said either, "I think I did," or "Because I think I did." And to his mom, he said, "I would not tell you this. I would not sit here and tell you that I did it if I did not." It was very powerful to me listening to it in the courtroom. Again, his tone did not sound like he was losing his mind. Sorry, true crime swine. Blinker Fluid said Rick was not in psychosis at the time of his confessions to his wife and mom. His psychosis treatment started after. I think Dr. Martin said the height of Rick's psychosis was, April 13th. April 2nd, he called his mom to say he found religion. The next day, he called his wife and mom and said, "I killed Abby and Libby." 0 cool. I think the jury is more intent on getting this verdict right than they are intent on going home. Yes, like I said, they seemed very engaged. And I would think after listening to all this testimony that they signed up for, knowing that they're going to be sequestered, they want to debate it with each other. I think they've been allowed to discuss the case with each other during the breaks and the lunch break, but this is finally their chance to share their final opinions with each other and debate it. And if there is some discrepancy between people, some people think he's guilty, some think not guilty. This is their chance to actually debate it and maybe try to change somebody else's mind to think that like they think. So I think the jury is gonna take it seriously. And also, maybe they're enjoying being away from their families. Don't send me back home. Just looking for some different topics. Noel says Rick was literally right next to the water on the trail. Why go 40 feet in the air? Can't you see fish from 5 feet? It's just a thing to walk the entire trail and then go out onto the bridge and look down. So I'm not doubting that he was trying to look at fish. My one of my issues is that the creek was so dirty that day, he could not spend a lot of time looking at the fish. And we know if he says he's there from noon to 1:30, we found out that Bree Wilbur took a photo of Freedom Bridge at 12:25. It takes 15 minutes from the start to get to from the start of the trail to get to the start of the high bridge. She took a photo of the high bridge at 12:43. She walked past all 6 benches. No sign of Richard Allen. Gets to the bridge, 12:43, no sign of Richard Allen. He said he was on the trail, the bridge, platform 1, and then a bench. So where the heck is he? If Rick got there at noon, he got to the high bridge at around 12:20. Looks over at the platform to see some fish. It's so cloudy in the water. What is he doing after that? He's not seen by anybody. He said that's around like 12:30-ish. If he's walking back towards bench number 6, how does he not encounter these 4 girls headed towards High Bridge? And if he's at like a bench theoretically at 12:30, what is he doing for an hour on a bench before he leaves at 1:30? How did these 4 girls who took a photo on bench 2 at 1:26 not see Richard Allen? This stuff does not add up to me. That's why I would vote guilty. Time for a drink. Oh. Most of you know I don't drink alcohol, but after this case, I might start. Jason says, what continues to amaze me is that typically jailhouse confessions that are unprompted would lead a normal defense team to seek a plea deal. Not these guys. Well, it's unknown what their discussions with Rick have been over the past 2 years. I said, I think last night, I just don't understand how a defense attorney can find out about all these confessions. Are they not saying to him, we hear you're confessing all over the prison on the phone. Do you want to tell us something and change your plea? Was that discussion ever held? And people have said like the defense attorney should never ask that of their client. But from my perspective, like, isn't the truth like the only thing that people should matter or care about, whether he truly was bridge guy or not? And like all this like legal stuff and the courtroom rules and stuff, it kind of gets in the way of the truth sometimes. Hi, Cappy 22. Yeah. Are you Swedish? Richard is guilty and he deserves to forfeit his life. Well, so why was he searching "Should I die now?" repeatedly after searching the Delphi? Did he search Delphi murders or just Delphi, Indiana news? Let me go back. I don't want to say anything wrong. I'm looking on my spread or PowerPoint. Delphi, Indiana news. Should I die now? Die now? Question mark. Should I die now? Should I die now? Like, why is somebody even Googling and expecting an answer to that question? And the defense is like, well, it's not certain that Rick searched that. Well, who else would search that in his house? His wife? Why is she trying to end her life? Devoted to Mariah, they hate the defense hates Sarah Carbaugh because she's an important witness. Well, they said that she can't be trusted. So Sarah Carbaugh was driving approximately 30 miles an hour on 300. And they're saying like her description of Bridge Guy, or so, yeah, Bridge Guy, the guy she saw, is not credible. However, like the defense's entire alibi for Richard Allen, or not entire, a majority of it is based on Betsy Carbaugh driving 30 miles an hour, seeing a car like 50 feet away, and saying that her saying that's from the 1960s means that Rick was not parked there. Yet they totally don't acknowledge that Betsy Blair also passed by CPS at 1:15 to take a potty break at the Delphi Library. No mention that I've ever seen of Betsy Blair saying, "Oh yeah, I saw Rick's car there. I saw a black car in that same spot at 1:15." Not adding up to Rick telling the truth, in my opinion. Dee Dee's duplicity is the word. How far behind am I? Uh-oh, almost an hour. We're at an hour and 17 minutes. We'll see what happens. High paperclip antenna. Let's face it, you're the lost Doobie Brother. What a Fool Believes is a great song by the Doobie Brothers. That's all I have to say. Can we all agree on that at least? Ivy wants to argue politely with Noel about, I guess, being up on the bridge. To be honest, I don't know what it looks like right there. I do. I looked over in May. I looked over platform 1, 63 feet up. The water was clear, so I can see if there are larger fish and it's clear in the summertime. Yes, you can look over platform 1 and see fish. As I said, the creek water on the day of the murders was cloudy. So how long is somebody looking at cloudy water and not being seen by the 5 other people on the trail at the same time? Yeah, I thought this was a weird thing. Lake. Brad Weber's property had sticks. Well, don't all of our properties? I don't know if they meant like it was in a pile, like for maybe firewood or something. I felt like that was a kind of weak thing. They were kind of trying to indicate that Brad Weber could have been the killer because his gun could not be ruled out, but he checked out of Subaru where he works at 2:02 p.m. It does not add up to Brad Weber being the killer. Fire and Fury, if I was a prosecutor, I also would have pointed out that the defense could not give a reason as to what Richard Allen did that day at the trails for supposedly 2 hours and his phone not being accounted for. Word up. 2 hours. Twice within the first week, he said, I was there 2 hours. Nobody saw him. His phone is missing from 2017 to prove his innocence and that he was home by 1:45. Whoops, where's the phone? Hey, Kathy, it's me, Rick. I'm innocent. Can you look and see what happened to my phone from 2017? Did you recycle it or sell it on eBay? Because that'll help me prove that I'm innocent. That conversation apparently never happened. Why not? Yeah, that was weird, but I mean, it's true. Like, if that was you falsely accused in prison, wouldn't you tell your defense team and your wife, find out where my phone is going to prove my innocence? Never happened. Ivy says Judge Gull specifically chose Bolden and Rosie as public defenders. They didn't ask to be appointed originally. I have a feeling they typically charge more per hour than the state pays, which is $100 an hour. I'm just curious, like at what point does Judge Gull say to public defenders, is your current caseload going to prevent you from properly handling this case? Scott says Ricky has no alibi. On a jury, I would be needing an alibi. That's another huge point. I totally agree with that. This weirdo, Tom Webster says, a significant majority of trials result in a guilty verdict, which estimates suggesting that around 80 to 90% of trials end in a conviction. A large majority of cases result in a guilty verdict. I think some people were saying like 98% end up with a guilty verdict. So as my recording was playing, I was Googling that just to share with you guys. So it seems like the odds of other cases are in favor of a guilty conviction. However, there's up to 20% that might end with Rick being found not guilty. True crime swine. How can the defense simultaneously argue that the Indiana State Police are idiots that bungled the investigation and are also smart enough to frame Richard Allen? Yes, that's I was going to say a decent point, but more than decent. It was good. Hi, Rebby. If I were a juror, part of voting guilty, then finding out about third-party culprit left out, I'd be angry. Not a fair trial, Judge Gall. She has gall, pun intended. I agree with Judge Gall on this point. I have not seen enough stuff to waste my time. If I'm on a sequestered jury for 3 weeks at this point, do you want to hear the defense present their 136-page Frank's memo, volume 1 of 4? You want to hear all 4 of the Frank's memos for the next 2 weeks? People say I'm biased, but I try to keep an open mind, and I read every single word of all 4 freaking Franks, and the defense did not convince me that any of those guys, the Odinists, quote unquote, were there that day. Yes, Elvis Fields, his comments are very suspicious. He lived 2 hours away. After the Franks memo came out, he said, what did I do? Take my turtle to Delphi? Apparently he says he didn't have a car or something. Hi, Jenny Bunny. Thank you. Bridge guy crossed the bridge prior to the girls. According to Richard Allen, he said he followed them on the trail. If you've seen some of my previous videos, I zoomed in on Libby's photo of the entire bridge, the one that's not with Abby in it. And I think there's like a shadow at the end that could be Bridge guy or Richard Allen. Because if you're about to kidnap 2 girls to have a sexual fantasy, after you're on platform 1 and Betsy Blair sees you, shouldn't you walk down to the other end and make sure that if some kind of opportunity arises, that it's a good place to abduct 1 girl or 2 girls? A lot of people disagree, and that's fine. Dan, thank you so much, and hi to Mrs. Dan. That's not funny. I'm so stupid. I think I'd laughed at that last night also. Dan wants his money back. Hi, Patty. I think Abby got choked out because she was killed when she was unconscious. But there was no like choke marks. I don't know what choked out means, I guess. Does that mean choking on blood or the hands of the killer? Patty's like typing furiously, but I'll never see it. Yeah, the whole thing with Abby like being found like this. Some people last night were saying maybe the killer like, kneeled on her chest with her hands like that and cut her that way, so she could not touch. I don't know. It's difficult to talk about. Paperclip antenna. I can't wait till the moment Rick is taken away. He should have just owned up to what he did and not put the families through this, including his own. Yeah, some of the part of stuff that I don't understand about his confessions not being true, he said he wants to apologize to the families. Like, if he's crazy, like, why does he even care about apologizing to the families? Also, he seemed to know that his um, revelations that he killed Abby and Libby might result in his wife and mom not loving him anymore. He's like, "Will you still love me?" So he's aware of the consequences of saying, "I was a killer of 2 kids." Hi, shady lady. I'm a shady guy. The defense lawyers are trying to cash in on this case. They're thinking about book deals and Netflix documentaries. I don't know that I'd go that far, but having your name in the international media is obviously good for business. I'm not saying that either of them took the case for that or kept it going for so long. I'm just saying having your name out there is good for business, especially if Rick is found not guilty. Other people who are charged with murders or other crimes are going to be like, oh, I want them. They got Richard Allen to be found not guilty. All right, I'm so far behind. Let's scroll. Under your scars, words matter 60 times. I agree. Writing down to the warden, picking up a tablet, calling your wife and mom, somebody walking by here overhears you saying, I killed Abby and Libby, telling like 10 suicide companions. It's like, at what point do we stop trying to think of excuses about why he would be saying this so many times over 10 months? Hi, some ordinary gooners. Thank you. Whatever happened to all that weird cult Nordic stuff that was coming out about this case like a year ago? Was all that real or rumors? So I was just talking about the Frank's memos, number 1 through 4, and that was not the defense making stuff up. There were 3 law enforcement officers, Ferenczi, Click, and Murphy. At least 2 of them were from a town called Rushville, which is like 2 hours from Delphi. I guess at some point the police did maybe think that the branches on Abby and Libby were some kind of symbols. So they started looking into Odinists who, like you say, worship like Thor or some other kind of stuff like that. So these guys thought maybe these law enforcement officers thought maybe a group of Odinists killed Abby and Libby for some kind of sacrifice, which is how the defense started off the first Frank memo saying Abby and Libby were killed as part of a ritualistic sacrifice or something. So at some point this past summer, they had hearings, and Judge Gull said the defense did not prove to her that there was a nexus between these 5 Odinists or 5 or 6 guys and the actual crime scene. So that was not allowed to be brought up at the trial. Hopefully, I explained that decent. Hi, Glam Van. I thought how cool it was to allow jurors to ask questions. I totally agree. That's a great feature. Illegally Blonde, Sesame Street shirt? How dare you? Block her. I'm kidding. Hopefully, my moderators are behaving. Thank you for everyone who's a moderator. I've gotten some complaints about the moderators over the past few weeks. Just everybody be polite, and the moderators won't have to ban you. Hi, Metal Man. Richard kept trying to tell his wife and mom the truth after he found Jesus, but they would not let him talk. He's got little man syndrome, controlled by women. That's probably half his motive. I'm not sure how much his height and a life of I don't know, he's 44 at the time of the murders. You said little man syndrome. I'm not sure if he did have insecurity issues. He at some point said he cares what other people think. Some people speculated, could Abby and Libby have said something to him or laughed at him, and that caused him to decide, okay, I'm going to do something to these two girls. Hi, Sandy A. If they don't come back with that guilty verdict and justice definitively has not been served. Well, a lot of people think a not guilty verdict is justice because people think Rick is innocent. Frank says, I'm not sure what this case is. YNW? Melly had a hung jury for his double murder case. Just like this, he had been in jail, not prison, for 2 years. And then when the mistrial happened, they would not give him bond. So if there's a mistrial, I don't think Rick does get set free. And if he's guilty, is he going to appeal? So many people have said there's been so many errors legally that Rick has a great shot at appeal. Well, if he truly is guilty, is he only trying one time to not spend the rest of his life in prison? People say, like, why is he confessing to so many people yet not officially changing his plea to guilty if he's telling everybody he's guilty? I think it's partially because he's seen how horrible prison is. And he's like, I might as well try to have a trial so I don't have to be in these conditions for the rest of my life. Hi, Ginger. Not guilty in my heart. How do you explain how his timeline does not add up? And how within a few days after the murders, he said, I was there 1 to 3, 1:30 to 3:30, yet 5 years later, he says noon to 1:30. And nobody saw him in 2 hours or 90 minutes. Does not add up to me. I'm not trying to promote my videos, but I do have one called How Did Richard Allen Not See the Four Girls and Bridge Guy? I show like all 6 benches on the trail. I try to figure out like how could he not be seen, and I could not figure it out. So if you have an hour and 5 minutes or something, or watch it at 2 times speed, maybe see if it still adds up to you that he could be telling the truth. Ivy wants to hear the audio, I guess, of the calls to his wife and stuff, and hopefully they will become public at some point. Scott says something triggered him to murder. Well, according to him, his goal was not to murder, it was to sexually assault them. So he's 44 at the time, married to his wife for 25 years. 5 months prior, her brother, I think he was driving a motorcycle and got hit by somebody and got killed. So what could have caused him to have this sexual motive that day? Aloha, Kauai. Hi, Sparky. Hi, Hathor's Mirror. Thank you. We'll have to delete that. That's stupid. Moving along. Has anybody checked on Devin from Pizza Hut? I want Pizza Hut. I want Domino's. I like Domino's better than Pizza Hut normally, but the pepperoni pizza at Pizza Hut was pretty good. I prefer Domino's with just double hot sauce on top. Start judging me now. Gen X Rando, I think he likely is guilty, but I don't know if the jury will feel there's enough evidence to surpass reasonable doubt. How are they going to explain away his confessions on the phone to his wife and mom and all these guards? And nobody's seeing him on the trail, no alibi. His phone is missing. The 127 video shows a car that apparently matches his. I think if there's a guilty verdict, I think it could be reached based on a decent amount of evidence. Thank you, everybody who is satisfied with my hair. I wish my hairline was going this way instead of that way. My dad is totally bald on top, so I should be lucky to have this at 50 years old. Yes, I'm 50 years old. No, I'm not using a filter, and no, I've never had Botox. My face just naturally does not move at all, except when I'm doing my stupid laugh. Moving along. Honk honk. Victoria says, if you've watched true crime for decades, you can see the birth and growth of all these conspiracy theorists. I've followed true crime since Ted Bundy, and John Wayne Gacy in real time. Everything is conspiracy today. I am kind of surprised at so many people who thinks things are conspiracies, especially in this case, like all of these people in Indiana, law enforcement, Westville prisons, like the psychiatrists, they're all in a conspiracy against Richard Allen, who they don't know. It doesn't add up to me, but it's kind of scary that it adds up to some people. Having said that, I do think there is a lot of shady stuff that has gone on with law enforcement, but it doesn't mean Rick is innocent and being falsely accused. Some ordinary gooners, unfortunately, is true. That's why I went to Europe this past summer for my 50th birthday. Can I start crying on camera? Scott says, this trial reminds me of a football game played in the rain the entire time. Both teams in a struggle, one in the last second by a field goal. Well, who kicked the field goal in this case? The prosecution today or the defense? I'm scared. Ellie Joe made an AI Tom? Uh-oh. Is it telling you to go to sleep? Hedgy Mom, I'm new to your channel. Is this your normal voice or put on? Unfortunately, it's normal. I don't talk a lot, and I've been talking a lot over the past few weeks for this trial. So it sounds more robust than normal. It's always annoying and robotic. So bye. Unsubscribe. Ruby Arias. Any relation to Jody? Plot twist. They wouldn't allow him on the stand because he was going to scream, I did it. Also, could he answer questions and not sound like Bridge Guy? And also not sound guilty with his answers? Ginger, I still can't understand why they did not look into Tony Klein or Brad Holder or Patrick Westphal and Elvis Fields. Law enforcement did look into them, and they could not find enough evidence to charge them. They found enough evidence to charge Richard Allen. We're at an hour and 39 minutes. I'll go about 20 minutes more. Jason, Windows or Mac? I'm on a Mac right now. Normally, I'm in my recliner on a Windows laptop, connected to my big screen TV. Kate is not having it. Richard has cost the state over $4 million. He doesn't deserve anything from a civil lawsuit. If he's found guilty, will the families sue him for wrongful death? How much money does he have? I don't know that it's right to sue his wife. She was not the one on the bridge doing this. Thank you, Frank. Francis says he puts himself at the scene wearing what Libby filmed. He lost the phone from 2017, changed his time frame and clothing to investigators years later, confessed to his wife repeatedly. Yes, that's fairly strong evidence, in my opinion, but not in other people's opinions. All right, I'm skipping over lots of comments. Laura said, "Is Richard Allen an alcoholic or not?" The defense said the state did not prove his alcoholism. Was there any evidence presented? I'm almost certain Dr. Wallace said that Rick was an alcoholic twice since 2011, which I wonder, like, how are you an alcoholic twice? Was his problem so bad that he's considered an alcoholic and then he stopped and then he went back? I'm not sure how that works. Hi, Kevin. I've been trying to play it over in my head and I can't figure out how Kelsey's hair, Libby's sister, could have made its way into Abby's hand. Was it there before or after she passed? I just can't figure it out. Well, it's been said that Abby's hands were found like this, and the sleeves of Libby's sweatshirt were covering her hands. So it was mentioned that DNA from a laundry machine can pass from like one person to another, even if like a male is living in the same house as a female, and some kind of evidence is tested. A male DNA could transfer to something through the laundry. So did Kelsey's hair get inside of that sweatshirt and somehow be in her hand? I know it's kind of weird. However, Abby like crossed the creek as far as we know. So at what point would that hair not be like taken away by the water in the creek? Yeah, it's interesting, but I don't think it leads to anything pointing towards Kelsey being involved. High thoughts arrive. Do you think Richard Allen's family actually believes he is innocent, are in complete denial, believe he is guilty but don't care, or some combination of any of the above? I think that a mother who raised Rick, like she said on the phone, and Rick's wife also said, I don't think you're capable of doing this. That doesn't mean that he didn't do it. So I don't know how much the family has really done a deep dive on these facts like a lot of us have. So I don't, based on what I saw with Rick's wife, like moving her head back and forth during the trial, it seemed to me like she agrees that Rick is innocent. Just my observation with her head movements, obviously that means nothing. Hi, Venus Gal. Sheriffs like Tobe Lesenby really are not involved, I guess, in investigations. Their role is administrative, right? Thank you. Metal Man, Rick got rid of his bloody jeans. I was really surprised when the list of the items from Rick's house came out from October 2022. There were a lot of pairs of jeans and other stuff. They took so much stuff. I was like, well, what is he wearing for the next 2 weeks? Like, they took all of his clothes. Hi, Jack. Did you say that just because it's hijack? So you think Rick cleaned out his car, got rid of the gun and knife before he went to talk to police? Well, they found his gun on October 13th, 2022. So no, I don't think he got rid of it. I don't know what's going on in the chat or like 50 minutes ago, but be polite or the moderators will ban you. Illegally Blonde says the old videos of Rick in the bar look like Bridge Guy. I do think his body type and feet size match Bridge Guy. Venus Gal, yes. Why did they not do that? That voice is Rick's. Why no comparisons? Well, Brian Harshman, who listened to all 700 of Rick's phone calls, said he is sure the guy on the Libby's video saying, guys, go down the hill, that it's a match to this man's voice that he's listened to for so long. I agree with him. After I heard the October 13th interrogation and also the November 14th, 2022 phone call to his wife, where he said, if this gets too much for you, let me know and I'll tell the investigators whatever they want to know. I think Rick's voice matches Bridge Guy's. Ivy Rose can't believe Tobe Lesenby said he believed more than one person was involved, even in August 2023. So yeah, August 2023 was Tobe's deposition with the defense team, correct? Yes. I know there was some issue where Tony Liggett said he did not think more than one person did it, but Tobe Lesenby said yes, other investigators like Tony Liggett did think two people did it. I think one person could do this. I think a 5'5" man could do it. He had a gun. That's very powerful on anybody, not just two best friends in 8th grade. Hi, Kimmy Canuck. Was Richard Allen on medication on the day of the murders for his mental health issues before he decided to buy 6 beers? I believe he was on Prozac at the time of the murders. And there was some kind of reference to Seroquel for anxiety. Although somebody in the chat yesterday said there's no consequences for drinking alcohol along with Prozac. Blinker fluid. I think most people know when you're acting up in jail, they give you a spit hood, cuff you so you don't hurt yourself or guards. What else are they supposed to do? Well, why is Rick supposedly threatening to kill guards at Cass County Jail? Is he losing his mind again? As I said, in the courtroom, he seemed totally normal to me. He started, I guess, bringing in a Bible, including today, a fairly large one. Is that some kind of symbol to the jury? Metal Man with a good point, and the defense also. The state should have asked the witnesses if Richard was the person they saw. Well, the issue is that the guy that the girls around 1:30 passed near the start of the trail, rarely Voorhees said he had a scarf up to his nose and a hood and some kind of hat. So she only saw like his eyes. And then Betsy Blair saw him from like over 50 feet away. And then Sarah Carboy was driving 30 miles an hour. But I agree that they should have at least asked them, including the defense. If they would say, no, I don't know, that's a great question for the defense to ask. Also, the defense should have asked them, how many times did you go into the CVS between 2017 and 2022? Did you see Richard Allen and think that was the guy I saw? Nobody asked that question. I don't think so, caricature contest, but thank you. Thoughts arrive. This is not a question of if you think Richard Allen is guilty or not, but I'm curious to know if you think the state proved their case. Yes, because I as I was watching this trial unfold, I was thinking for the first few days, like, is there going to be more stuff to convince me that Rick is guilty? It wasn't until towards the end of the prosecution's case that I said, okay, finally, yes. After almost 4 years looking into this case or whatever, thinking about it every day, I finally, in my mind, can resolve. I believe Richard Allen is telling the truth. His timeline, everything does not add up. His hearing him on the phone, I believe he is guilty. And Bridge guy. Hi, Hoosier Jan 61. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Um, I'm not sure that he was drunk that day, but if he's an alcoholic, is 3 beers going to affect him? Obviously, he walked across the bridge without falling over, which I'm sure some people wish he did fall over. Illegally Blonde. I hope YouTubers can use their proceeds to buy this court content down the road. I want to see Rick drinking out of the hopper. I don't want to see that. Or jumping around naked while singing God Bless America. Although, haven't we all done that at some point? Jamie. Oh, are you Mrs. Dan? Ah, why do I laugh at the Myers family? You took the best notes. I tried to watch another podcaster after you left Delphi, and she stunk. I tried, and I know that they were a mess, but I tried my best. Are you and your husband like in your family room on different devices watching me? I have a rule that you're only allowed to watch me on cell phones and not big screen TVs. Thank you. Jack says, so Rick must have went to the police knowing he did not leave any DNA behind. That's a good point. He must have done his best work drinking alcohol. I don't know about that point. That's a very good point. Did he even know that he was captured on Libby's phone video? Obviously, that it came out the night before he went to police. He went to police on the 16th. The night of the 15th came out the screenshot. However, it may not have been known if that was from a trail cam or that there was an entire video. Actually, it was. Yeah, because I think down the hill, the voice came out also on the night of the 15th. So that's pretty ballsy to go to the police if that's his voice, which, like I said, I do believe it matches up. Justice Jane, my condolences to all of Abby and Libby's families and friends. May God comfort them always. Yeah, I said in one of my videos, like some of us will be able to like move on with our lives after this verdict, but Abby and Libby's families, like unfortunately, they're never coming home for any more like holidays, and they're the ones who are going to have to deal with the consequences of this for the rest of their lives, and also Richard Allen's family. I'm still very far behind, so I'm going to scroll. Kimmy Canuck. Yeah, I still need to figure this out. We had heard before that they had identified all the phones on or around the bridge that day. So why didn't they get the information from Rick's missing phone? They did that without the actual phone up here. I've been saying this for a few days. I'm still trying to get caught up after being away for so long. Did they say Rick's phone did not ping on the tower when he said he was on a stock ticker? I need to go back and find if that was ever mentioned and which day. Priscilla says having all those phones and then not producing the phone he was using the day of the murders is very suspicious. I agree. Nobody ever mentioned if his phone pinged off the tower. Yeah, what I was just saying. Todd says the legal system has little to do with the truth. Hi, Todd. I haven't seen your emoji in a long time. Illegally blonde. I don't think this was planned anymore. I think he saw them as easy prey, and his confession is the truth. I just like to know why he would go to his mom's, where his sister was, I think. They say they're going out to lunch, and he's like, I'm not going to lunch. But he drives home, apparently, maybe stops somewhere to get a six pack, drinks 3 beers, according to him, bundles up, and then goes to the trail. What was his motivation to see if there were any females on that trail to take advantage of? Fire and Fury, I honestly thought Should I Die Now is a movie, not actually asking the internet, should I die now? Oh, is it? If so, why is somebody searching it 5 times in a row? It apparently wasn't a good movie if I never heard of it. Huh. Yeah, I need something after this case. High B for T parodies. Did you ask this last night? Are you seeing if I'm changing my answer? Without the confessions, would you still vote guilty? Is the timeline too strong? I would say the confessions kind of pushed me over the edge to guilty, but also hearing that Betsy Blair was there also from 12:02 to 1:15. She didn't see Rick. She was walking around, going to the High Bridge, down the 505, walking to Freedom Bridge. Didn't see Rick on any of the benches between 12:05-ish to 1:15-ish. Didn't see his car at CPS at 1:15 when she drove by. Like, I think even though I'm saying that the confessions, hearing them, kind of pushed me to guilty, I think, like, all this other stuff that does not add up to Rick's innocence to me, I would still vote guilty, if that makes any sense. But usually I don't make any sense, so oh. Dee Dee's, there was no legal proof to the Odin stuff, so they could not present it. Well, people made some decent, arguments that Rick's DNA was not found at the crime scene, and neither was these other guys like Elvis Fields. So why do certain things apply to Richard Allen, but not to the Odinists to present evidence against them? Metal Man, searching for the most disturbing kidnapping movies, was him reliving the scenes. Some interesting searches there, but a lot of people have said their searches are also disturbing. Hi, Brian. Thank you. I'm still trying to like find fugitives and solve crimes, but I don't really want to do long summaries. I want to help solve a case, and I've come to the conclusion that if the police usually can't solve a crime with access to all the evidence, it's unlikely that one of us online sleuths will with access to even less evidence. So we shall see. Kimmy Canuck, did law enforcement go through Rick's home again after his wife sold it? Up here in Canada, law enforcement has torn apart a home looking for additional evidence. Paul Bernardo case, for example. I've never heard anything, and based on what I've heard about the investigative practices, I would assume no. Hi, Cinder Bella. The kidnapping charge was dropped, correct. At some point, I think there were 6 total charges. Just kidnapping for each victim, that's 2. Kidnapping that led to murder for each, that's another 2. And then just murder. So I think maybe there is I don't know why McClellan dropped the just kidnapping charge. Some people said it might have been a statute of limitations or something. Sammy Joe has never heard of people watching fish from 63 feet away. I'm not saying that it was, I mean, he did have a fishing license, so he was interested in fish. I don't think you're allowed to fish off of Mona High Bridge. Don't know what to say. It was kind of weird that Dan Doolan said after September 2022, when they found out Rick was his tip was never properly followed up on. Dan Doolan looked on the so Dan Doolan works for Division of Natural Resources, which is like fishing and hunting. So he looked up on the system to see if Rick had a license for fishing, and he did. And so the murders happened February 2017. I think it was April 1st, 2017. Rick went in to renew his wife and his license for fishing, and he changed his height from 5'4" to 5'6". Not that it means anything about guilt, but it was kind of interesting. So I just wanted to say that to show that Rick did have some kind of interest in fish. He had a license, so did his wife. We passed 2 hours, maybe like 20 more minutes. Again, I'm not planning to do a live chat until Sunday, unless the jury comes back with a verdict. Ivy says Rick has a chronic history of being suicidal. The timing is interesting, though. Well, I was shocked to hear that at some point in front of his family, he put a handgun in his mouth. And he said at some point afterwards, it was a cry for help. So he's had some mental issues for quite a while, even before the murders. Blinker fluid. Brad Weber lives in the woods. Of course, there are sticks. Stop making me recreate or reenact emojis. Hi, speak life. About the fish watching, yes, the water was murky and muddy, soup looking. What kind of soup looks like that? What? Ah, sorry. Anyway, we'll move along. Proven by how many people? 440 people are like, he's so weird. Anyway, proven by the other girl's photo of the bridge that day. Correct. I've seen Cheyenne's photo, shows it's looking murky. Also on the 14th, the helicopter footage shows it's dirty. Not sure if those were entered in evidence. I hope so. I don't think. I think the 1243 photo by one of the four girls was entered. And actually, yeah, I think Cheyenne's 349 photo wasn't. It was entered. Thank you for your comment. Under your scars, Rick's wife called the police. I think you're saying in a domestic violence, but I'm not sure that that was what it was about. It may have been because he was drunk. Although, why would you call police if he's just drunk? I'm not sure. Kathy called police on Rick. He went to psych hospital, suicidal, and that triggered looking into him too, apparently. I don't think that's correct. I think it was July 2015. His wife did call police. I think the news report said he was drunk and had to be taken to a regular hospital. In 2019, we don't know which month, he went to some kind of facility for mental health. I'm not frozen. I'm looking for comments. Yeah, Hoosier. I think a lot of us agree. Like Rosie saying because there were sticks on Brad Weber's property that maybe he like put sticks on Abby and Libby's body did not add up to me if I'm on the jury. Metal Man says Richard Allen has cuckoo killer eyes in his opinion. If you said that on the stand, the defense would say, can you say like what training you have to determine if somebody has cuckoo killer eyes? That's what I learned from the trial. Illegally Blonde, yes. Too many coincidences. Guilty. The bullet is a nail in the coffin. I don't even really care about the bullet. I think even without that, it shows that he is guilty. But the defense at some point in the Franks memo said, at some point, coincidences become, I don't know what they said. Something like, ah, I need to go to sleep. Something like at some point, coincidences are not coincidences. And in this case, there's a point where it's like, sorry, Rick, it's not just coincidences. You're guilty. Yeah, I think no matter what the verdict is, people are going to freak out. Metal Man, Richard did not need an alibi. He put himself at the trail. I've been saying that multiple times. He said, I was there at 2:13 twice within the first week. That's his alibi. He was there. He changed it 5 years later. High Fair Maiden wins. This may have been after I said, if somebody's going to kidnap somebody, after being seen on platform 1, you would go to the far end to see if it's safe to kidnap down there. So your comment is you'd go down under the north end path that's under the bridge. I'm not sure that I totally understand your comment. I'm sorry. Jason agrees. What a Fool Believes is a pop classic, co-written by Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins. Footloose is a good song by Kenny Loggins. Stop, Tom. All right. Hi, Sparky. Thank you. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I need Taco Bell. It's been too long. Scott wants to know, where is the specificity of Richard Allen's exact movements, places, times? Are you saying for his alibi or for the prosecution's theory that he is Bridge Guy? Rosie for Rivets agrees with Auntie Gull. She made sure this did not turn into a circus at the trial, just blaming Ron Logan, Kagan Klein, and Odinus. I'm looking at the time to maybe 10 more minutes. Under Your Scars, transcripts should come out in time. I think they charge like $5 a page, though. It's going to be like a few thousand pages, maybe 2,000 pages. I'm not paying for that, but maybe I'll try to organize with other people to pay. We'll see. Hopefully, the clerk is not going to charge everybody who asks for it a few $1,000s each. We'll see. Kimmy Canuck, if Abby and Libby were blindfolded, they wouldn't have seen it coming. That's a good point. And also, Libby was apparently facing a tree when she was cut, based on the blood spatter. Did the medical examiner actually test for duct tape residue on the girls' faces? This was interesting to me because that's Dr. Kaur who did the autopsies. He, at some point, he's saying like maybe there was some kind of residue here that may have been duct tape, but I don't recall like ever testing if that residue matched duct tape. Sigh. Hi, T Rose. Thank you. Oh, great. Now I want Girl Scouts. Hi, Thin Mint. One time, why do I say this stuff? At work, when I had a job, I walked in the morning. I think at home I had an apple for breakfast. I get to work and there's like Girl Scout cookies on the kitchen table. So for brunch, I ate 34 Girl Scout cookies in like 5 minutes. Mostly Thin Mints, and like two Thin Mints is like one normal cookie. So it was maybe 15 cookies in 5 minutes. Good morning, Humanimal, and everybody else in Australia and New Zealand and Hong Kong. Hi, Ling, 8 Ling. If he was psychotic and rambling out confessions, he would have had some bizarre reason why, and the confessions would have been peculiar. As I've said, like in these phone calls, he talks about other stuff normally, and then he confesses. To me, he was not saying anything in these phone calls that was like totally off base. I understand that he did say other things, maybe to suicide companions or even a doctor, but in the phone calls that were played, there was nothing like saying, I think at some point he said he wants to start World War III, which obviously that's not normal unless you're Kim Jong Un. Moving along. Are we done yet? Five more comments and we're done. Cinderbella, no spousal privilege if it's a crime against children. Are you sure that pertains in Indiana? Well, regardless, Rick's wife never testified either for him or against him. I'm still 40 minutes behind on comments. All right. Didn't I say five more comments? Oh, Lordy. I don't like these comments in this section. Well, keep scrolling. Ah, five more comments. Hi, Marissa. When my sister and I shared clothes, her hair was always all over it. Did she shed a lot? Was she a black lab? Did anyone laugh at that? Anyway, yes. Please do not attack the girls' families. People can have different opinions, but if you cross the line, moderators will ban you. Four more comments. Just looking for some topics we have not discussed yet. Venus Gal agrees with Harshman about Rick's voice. I just don't get why the prosecution did not do comparison voice things. In Rick's October 26th interrogation, Holman said voice experts confirmed that's you and that's your voice, but he was lying. But I agree that they should have maybe had an actual voice expert compare Rick's voice from these interrogations to the Bridge Guy's sample. However, I think Inside Edition tried to compare Brian Chadwell's voice to Bridge Guy, and that expert may have said that the sample from Bridge Guy is too short to really do a proper comparison. Hi, Paul. Is there any chance Richard Allen is innocent? If there is, he should have gotten his butt on the stand and proven to me that he is truly innocent. He had his chance to do it. I'm not saying personally for me, but if I was on the jury, I'd vote guilty. If he truly wanted to convince the jury that he's innocent, he should have gotten up there and started answering some questions. To me, there's like too many things that do not add up to his innocence. So at this point, I'm saying no. Hi, DB. I apologize. You're not a douchebag. It was somebody else on Twitter who was acting like you or looking like you. Ah, oh, I need to read your comment. Yeah, Tobe Lesenby thought that for a long time that there were two people involved. Lots of law enforcement did. From what I've seen about the crime, I don't think one person was necessary. And what we've heard is the four girls said Bridge Guy entered from the trail, coming from where Rick would have parked. Then 20 minutes later, Betsy Blair sees one guy on platform one. 20 minutes after that, exactly, is the 213 video. We see one guy coming towards them. So obviously police saw that also. So why would they think two people did it? I'm not sure. How many more comments? 3? Is anyone keeping track? I'm still far behind. 3 more comments. Dice Anna? Who said he drank 3 beers? Rick did. He said he left his mom's house. He didn't say he stopped. I think he said he got a 6-pack, drank 3 beers that he finished after the murders. 2 more comments. Not this one's. Ron Logan, hi. I drink 3 beers in the shower before breakfast. That is nothing. Thank you, Ron. Hi, Jill. One more comment after this, and then we're done. Did the jury hear the audio of the girls prior to Richard Allen telling them to go down the hill? Yes, we did. It was played 4 times when I was in the courtroom. The first time I only heard, I was behind the TV. I was in like the middle section. So I could only hear it the first time. I then saw it 3 times, the actual full video. I'm pretty sure during one of my live chats, I wrote down, or I said what was said by Abby and Libby. It was mostly Libby talking, saying like it's the end of the trail. It was referenced in today's closing arguments that Libby said at some point, that be a gun, as Bridge Guy is walking towards her and Abby. So Bridge Guy says, guys, and I think it's Libby says something like either hi or huh. And then he says, go down the hill, or at least down the hill. And the first time I heard it, the guys definitely sounded like far away. So they definitely did amplify it. Final comment. If you're coming late, I'm not doing any more live chats until Sunday, unless there's a verdict. What is our final comment? Looking to see any topic we have not discussed. And this is a good point that I forgot about. We'll end with this, Ivy. The prosecutor, McClelland, fought to keep the geofencing out of evidence. Why? I think he said at some point he felt like the defense was going to try to misinterpret it. But that's a very good point. Food for thought. until the next live chat. All right, that's it. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you, moderators. Thank you to everybody who's generous and donated. Who knows what's going to happen over the next few days? If a verdict comes out, I will try and do a live chat as soon as possible. As always, like I start my live chats, this is about Abby and Libby, their families, and now Richard Allen and his family, and the town of Delphi. So hopefully there's going to be some resolution finally after almost 8 years. I will see you guys whenever there's a verdict, or Sunday. Bye.